welcome back to Reddit Aliens, everyone. Hello again, I'm John, your host today, and let's take a look at a topic. Oh boy, let's just do it. What's the worst thing you've ever seen or read on the internet, not safe for work, with a capital N? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Well, last time I went down a thread like this, someone mentioned a young man who got caught in a spinning machine and he's ripped apart in pieces that fly all over the factory. That still haunts me. The 911 call the social worker made when she brought Josh Powell's kids to him for a supervised home visit, and he pulled the kids inside and locked her out of the house. There's the partial transcript of the recording two serial killers made while torturing, sexually abusing, and finally killing a young lady. I only read it, and it was completely disturbing. At the end, she's begging to be killed. The FBI had her mother identified her by her voice. In the early days of the internet, it was the Wild West. Places like Yahoo had rooms and subdirectories where people uploaded all kinds of random stuff. I've seen a lot of awful things, but it's the ones with just sounds that get me. Everyone brings up that brick video, but the two that really messed me up are kind of opposite one another. One, most effed up, was an elderly woman calling 911 because someone was trying to break in, and the guy gets in and murders her horribly while the 911 operator had to listen. 2. Also effed up, but good ending, is the guy who got his leg crushed or cut off, I can't remember which, while working on a machine off in a remote part of his workplace. It takes a ridiculously long time for help to get there, and nobody working there notices. He's incredibly calm for the situation, asks the 911 operator to record a message to his mother just in case, and shockingly survived the ordeal. I bawled like a baby. Video starts with a man laying on his back. He doesn't have a face. I could clearly see a skull face. I thought he was dead, until he started screaming. When they started cutting his throat, he attempts to cover his neck, but you then see he's missing both of his hands. I can't think of any scenario for someone to deserve something like that to happen to them. I effing hate the cartel, the most brutal gang. That video of a brick falling off a truck and going through the windshield of the car behind it, killing the mom while her family is in the car, I absolutely refuse to watch it with the sound because the video alone and knowing what happened effed me up. The site depicting how a guy stalked a girl for years and all his pictures he took, he ended up dating her and had like 15 years worth of pictures of her. They broke up and he has more photos afterwards. Just the thought of someone constantly following you is disturbing enough, let alone sharing with the world the whole time. The Colombian or Brazilian police officer who was kidnapped with his son. They killed the dad on top of the son. They then flayed the son alive and pulled out all his organs while still alive. Then the Funky Town cartel. I'll never, ever get that out of my head. Still can't listen to the music without going sideways. Another was a cartel member from a rival gang whose nickname was Ghost Rider. So they made him one, kept pouring petrol over his face and igniting it. He lost his lips and eyelids and was just a red skull dripping in human flesh like a candle. And he still kept trying to talk. Just horrific. Also the ISIS slaughterhouse executions and the ISIS training camp for kids. They put a bunch of like 8-year-old kids into a building with about 10 prisoners and let them hunt them down. Just something about kids mercilessly shooting people begging for their lives that really hits you. I've now been narrating these stories for about 2 years, and every time this topic comes up, someone without fail mentions Funky Town. I've never seen it, and based on the descriptions, I don't ever want to. A video of a woman being fully vacuum sealed. Muffled screams, convulsions. She passes in and out of consciousness throughout the video. She was naked, so I'm assuming she was doing it for money. For some twisted Fs. They let her out way too late, and she definitely had brain damage afterwards. Horrible video. Probably a video of a guy after a cartel had gotten done peeling the skin off his face and cutting off his hands. The poor bastard was in so much shock that I doubt he knew what was happening. Afterwards, they decided to put him out of his misery by trying to cut his throat with a rusty box cutter. Baby abuse video. I think it was for pedophiles, or some sick way of sharing their abuse to gain more videos of worse shit. It was 5 seconds of several minute video that I witnessed, and it haunted me every day since. Had to get therapy for it. Even the therapist was like, what the F? Called the FBI in the hopes they could track down where the video came from, gave them the link. Seriously, I've seen gore, people getting skinned alive, beheadings, and the infamous videos of murderers with pics and whatever. Nothing comes close to what those 5 seconds did to me. Well, my first question would be, how did you come across this video? Because that's a little suspicious, maybe? I don't know. Terrible. Don't watch that. Just don't watch it. I'm late. There's some really disturbing posts here. One that I think about is from the sub Just No Mill, or one of those. A woman was writing about something that happened 20-ish years ago that she's been in therapy for this entire time. She had twin daughters, and one was allergic to coconut. Her mother, the twins' grandmother, was the stubborn type, like thinking that the mother was just being dramatic about the allergy. But the mom basically went through hell trying to isolate what was causing an allergic reaction to her one daughter. After an exhausting trial and error, found out it was coconut, and rid her house of it and told everyone about it so everyone knew to be careful. Well, the grandmother was watching the toddlers and braided the girls' hair before putting them to bed. She used coconut oil to smooth the hair and set them off to sleep. The allergic daughter wakes up and is not feeling well. The grandmother gives her Benadryl and sets her off again. In the morning, the girl was found deceased. She asphyxiated and was in pain all night and died a terribly painful death, suffering, unable to wake due to the Benadryl. The mother went no contact and was still in therapy and working through the trauma. The surviving twin daughter always felt like part of her was missing because she lost her twin sister. This story literally shook me to my core. I was in tears, sobbing uncontrollably, reading about this tragedy that tore this family to shreds. The grandmother knew about the allergy and went against the mother, thinking she knew better. The post was written so well and was so detailed it was heartbreaking, one of the worst things I've ever read on the internet. The Toy Box Killer's transcript of the recording he played to his victims when they woke up. Normally, shit like they don't have an effect on me, but F that transcript is something else. Couldn't imagine listening to the actual recording. I was a really messed up teenager who used the internet as an escape, and I would visit sites like Portal of Evil, Rotten, and Ogreish regularly. You name the edgy website, and I've probably visited it. I was in a pretty bad place mentally as a kid, and that sort of shit was cathartic in a way. How? Orgish definitely had the sickest content. I saw a lot of famous gore videos I definitely shouldn't have, like Chechen soldiers and one of the American beheadings. Eventually, I realized many of the people in the various shock website forums were genuinely horrible people, really. Like a number of literal racial holy war type racists, among others, and I stopped going because F that noise. I don't really think it affected me too badly, really. If I ever think back about it, it's more like, oh yeah, that was kinda effed up, than traumatic. Maybe you can hear my frustration or a little bit of disgust in some of people talking about going to these websites. There's a way to avoid this. Don't go on the website. It's frustrating, but I mean, it's a free internet, sort of, right? Worst thing I read was there was a story about a Russian woman that was eaten alive by a bear and texted or called her mother through the ordeal. It's pretty chilling to read, but I don't know how true it really is. Worst thing I've seen was either cartel executions or that one guy that jumped from a bridge and accidentally hit a metal platform face first. His face was pretty much mush, but still alive for a few days. There's a video on YouTube somewhere, some guy who's recording his trip through Paris catacombs that then suddenly freaks out, drops the camera and his only light source and just bolts off into some rando direction. Pretty disturbing, but by no means the most disturbing thing out there. It's just something that stuck with me. My thoughts are that he freaked the F out due to not knowing where an exit was, which is quite disturbing. A few sprinkles of gore videos qualify. Dagestan massacre, cartel murder videos, etc. Chechlia had quite the effect on me when I was younger. Worst thing I've seen, though, have been animal cruelty videos. Those make me angry like no other. Two that stick out were from some fur farm where they ripped the furs off of living dog-like animals and left them to bleed in pain before dying. I think it was from China. The other was a dog eating festival where some scum took a blowtorch to a dog that just stood there in shock and pain, also China. Some dude committing suicide by shooting himself in the head with a gun. I don't remember his name, but it was just barely pixelated, and I could just barely make it out, and that was the first time I saw something like that, and the only time I will ever look at something like that. I vaguely remember watching a YouTube reacting to a dark TikTok trends, and one of them was some sickos on TikTok splicing the video into normally innocent TikToks. I could also be totally wrong, just something I vaguely remember. I've always had young internet access and also knew how to get onto the dark web from a young age, so when I was about 7, great. I saw a video of a young woman being raped and drowned, cool. I never got traumatized really, but that kinda stuck with me for a week, but here and there I'll pop up in my mind. Another one was when I saw pictures from a motorcycle accident when I was 8, and the man's face was hanging on the side mirror, and his arm was across the road with his guts and his legs were still in the motorcycle, and yikes, that one also freaked me out. The story of Ron Brown. Don't want to get too elaborate, but he was a pedophile cannibal that performed as a children's ventriloquist for his church, even hosting his own cable access show. He came across as a genuine guy, but was very open about his pedophilic and cannibalistic intentions in online forums. Pictures of Iraqi babies who were affected by depleted uranium missiles we launched at them during Desert Storm and during Bush 2's cash grab. They were so horribly mutated, most were incompatible with life, the rest were just suffering. To this day, Iraqi women in those areas are afraid to give birth because they don't know what's going to come out. Honestly, I've seen more than my share and stopped trying to decide which was worse. One of the most recent ones, I didn't watch the entire thing and was on mute, a Ukrainian soldier going crazy with like a pocket knife on a Russian POW soldier's head. Even the site regulars were shocked by it. I found it via Documenting Reality, but I'm sure it can be found elsewhere, and no, I'm not linking anyone to it. A video of a kid shooting their cousin and then ending up killing themselves with the same gun. The screams and wails of the family were in the background. The time I stumbled across CP, wasn't looking for it, found erotic literature about abusing kids with porn. Ugh. I was so disgusted and disturbed, reported it and the website. As someone who was a kid that was sexually abused, it gave me flashbacks to my own horror. A video of a warehouse worker who got pulled into an industrial lathe and immediately spun around it like a rag doll, with being ripped to absolute shreds and splattered all over the walls. His coworker, clearly in shock, ran over and turned the machine off, by which point there was nothing left of him except a pool of blood with chunks in it. Really wish I didn't see that. It is sort of a thought-provoking thinking about how you can be alive one second and just gone the next.